All right. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Welcome to How to Upgrade from an Old Version of BarTender. I'll just give everyone just one more minute here to get comfortable. We have a great presentation for you. Today's session is going to be a roundtable discussion where we hope to answer any concerns or questions you guys have regarding updating your BarTender software. Because the session today is only 30 minutes, we ask that everyone please, if you have any questions, to direct them towards the chat. We'll be monitoring it as we go along, and we hope to answer all of your questions as quickly and efficiently as possible. We'll be sending out a follow-up email after this webinar here. So if we don't get to your question afterwards, please feel free to submit them there, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, I think we should be good to go. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm Ryan Rodriguez, a product marketing manager here over at Siegel. I have my two colleagues joining me today, Lee Stevens, our principal sales engineer, and Manny Castro, our senior solutions consultant. We have a pretty stacked agenda here today. After the introductions here, we'll be jumping right into updates regarding the BarTender lifecycle. Diving into the latest version of BarTender, which is BarTender 2022, and then getting into our Q&A roundtable. We'll be finishing up with some next steps on what you can do to then update your software so we can get you started. So before we really dive into end of support, one thing I wanted to discuss is just kind of what is the BarTender lifecycle. Basically, whenever we introduce a new version of BarTender, we guarantee at least 6 years of support starting with the release date of that version. So actually, BarTender 2022 was released a year ago from today. And so the end of support date for that is 6 years from now, looking at April 30th, 2028. What you'll see here is all of the current supported versions of BarTender. You see at the very bottom there that BarTender 2016 is approaching end of support in the next couple of days. So if you have BarTender 2016, it's a great first step that you are, first of all, attending this. And second, yeah, it's definitely a good idea and highly recommended that you start looking to update your software. And so when we're talking about end of support, what exactly does it mean? It basically means that all unsupported BarTender licenses will no longer receive support. So you do not have access to technical support. You will no longer have any be receiving any security updates regardless of the severity of those issues, and you will lose the ability to add any new printers. And so all of that is already high thing to kind of think about, and it could actually lead into much larger issues down the line, such as higher security and compliance risk. You know, we continue to see different stories out there of companies starting to or experiencing different ransomware attacks, and getting fines that are kind of hefty, I will say, from the likes of GDPR if you're working in the EU for compliance reasons. And so that's one thing to make note of. The other thing is, since you no longer have access to technical support, you will start to really see that you're starting to dive more into your IT resources and starting to exhaust those, which can really drive up the cost there. But I mean, eventually, as you continue to operate on legacy versions of BarTender, you start to kind of lose that competitive edge because you're no longer working with the latest technologies within BarTender. And so when we're talking about the latest technologies, what we're really talking about is being able to have more flexibility and more mobility. So BarTender 2022 is currently the latest version of BarTender. Within BarTender 2022, we've added several new capabilities and enhancements, such as the BarTender REST API, which allows you to connect to any business system, such as your ERPs, your WMS, your MES, anything like that. So you can build custom integrations that help you automate your labeling workflow. Along with BarTender 2022, you have the ability for flexible printer licensing, so you no longer have to worry about tier printer add-ons. We also have revamped the print portal, making it a lot easier to find and select your labels and then printing it from any web browser. Along with that, we've also expanded printing access so that you can have more tailored control over who has access to what, and making sure that your teams, partners, and external suppliers are all working with the information that really they need to know. Along with that, we've recently released the BarTender mobile app, which is only compatible with BarTender 2022. That allows you to print from anywhere, anytime on any mobile device that your teams work with. And along with that, we've expanded support for our 20 plus databases, including a new SAP HANA database connector. And so all of this looks great. I know that everyone definitely wants to get their hands on this, but it can be a little overwhelming of like how to even get started. And so I'm going to actually pass the baton over to Manny, who will kind of help you understand how you can get started if you're not quite sure.
Yeah, hi everyone. Some of you may know me. My name is Manny Castro. I'm on the professional services team here at Siegel Scientific, and I'm responsible for scoping out and quoting out the consulting engagements and also delivery of consulting engagements. And overall, I'm on the team that's responsible for all that. So you may have worked with us in the past, or some of my colleagues on the pro services groups in the past, and here are some bullets on how you can get started in terms of if you're, as Ryan mentioned, if you're not sure where to start, you're uncomfortable, or you have concerns in terms of upgrading. A good place to start with that is our PS upgrade assessment. Our PS upgrade assessment is effectively an evaluation. We schedule it for a couple hours, but we spend anywhere between 30 minutes to a couple hours. It depends on your implementation, to just get an idea in terms of what your BarTender deployment looks like. We take note of its current state, and then we also have sections that we insert suggestions and things like that, suggestions and recommendations that we may have in terms of just maybe something that was just developed some time ago that maybe was implemented incorrectly, or something that has been that you could do better because of new features that now exist. At the end of the document, we provided a high-level overview of how to execute the actual upgrade. And effectively, if we were to own this, this is how it would look like. Some customers opt to take that document and kind of use it as a set of instructions or a directional document in terms of execution, and they own it on their own. Other customers opt to re-engage with our consulting team, our pro services team, and have us be involved to some degree, whether it be we completely own it or we consult on the upgrade or migration up to the new version of BarTender. We also give you a couple hours credit, irrelevant of how much time we spent or how little or how much time we spent. We give you a couple hours of credit for that subsequent engagement project. Other pro service offerings, I guess, since we're here, I should mention that as well. A big component that keeps us busy is integrating with other business systems. So that's the building of automated print processes, where you would solicit a print job from some other third-party application, generally your warehouse management system, so WMS, ERP, custom app, web app, whatever it may be, right? And that application programmatically interacts with BarTender and solicits a label to print. Magic happens in the background and the label spits out next to the user. So we build those integrations or those automated print processes, and that falls into our integration design bucket. We have a handful of SOW templates and part numbers and things like that we have for that, because we do have a ton of experience with several different ERPs and applications. Integrating with them, that is. Another thing that primarily keeps us busy is template design, and in general, just integration, solution, evaluation, and modernization. So it's very common to run into scenarios where a file integration was kind of all you can do back then, and that was just like we lived with it, and it was built, and it was working fine for the last decade or so. So it just existed, and there's now new and different ways to integrate. And I think, as Ryan mentioned, primarily that would be our REST integration, our REST APIs, and things associated with that. There's also a lot of new features within the templates as well that involved, scripting in the past, where now they're just embedded features. A good example of that is like everything that falls into the intelligent templates category. So conditional printing, making business decision in terms of logos and layouts and things like that, that you can control dynamically. That's me.
Great, thank you, Manny. So now we're going to open it up to everyone as far as the roundtable Q&A, and so please continue to add your questions into the chat. I know prior to this we had sent out a questionnaire for everyone and to kind of get us loaded up here with some questions, and so I'm going to open it up with just kind of talking about backward capability or compatibility. Sorry, Lee and or Manny, would whichever one of you would like to talk about that.
Why don't I take a stab at it? Backward compatibility. So the oldest BarTender I've seen that I've been involved with in doing an update is like 7.5. Manny, have you done one older than that?
No, I think, yeah, version 7. I don't recall exactly which version of 7 it was, but I think version 7 is probably the oldest that I've seen. That we've actually upgraded. I've seen older versions. I've been here like 10 plus years. So I've seen older versions, but in terms of like we own upgrades, I think that's the oldest one, yes.
Yeah, and the amazing, the great thing about BarTender is, I tell people is that, hey, you have 15-year-old software and it's still working, and so you keep it working. Most of the templates that came out of that 7.5 ran without a problem on 2022. To Manny's point, really the only times that you have a challenge is if because the old BarTender didn't have all of the features, you did something that was a little unusual, or you were doing something that kind of was a unique approach, and now all of a sudden there's a feature there that supports it, or something else has changed. Maybe a font that was standard in Microsoft isn't there anymore, something like that. So we've had, I don't know, Manny, how many hundreds or thousands of customers successfully update now? So the updating process, we've really worked that out. Ryan, you're going to share some links, I think, on some of them. We've got, if you go into the support portal and you just type updating to BarTender 2022, it's going to take you to a page that will take you from whatever version of BarTender you're starting with and give you that outline of what you can expect in doing the update. The big thing about the templates and the compatibility is that this is when you engage with Manny, and you can often reduce the number of templates you have to maintain, because the intelligent template capability allows us to consolidate and use one template in place of 5 or 6 or 10. And that makes management going forward a heck of a lot easier. So I kind of walked around all of that question, Ryan, but there you go.
No, thank you guys. Looks like there's a couple of questions regarding what is recommended to watch out for, something you personally recommend of what not to do when upgrading your software. Let's look at specifically for 2016.
I would say the biggest thing is don't just install 2022 over the top of your existing platform. You have production stuff. You've got things, you do not want to have that interrupt. And so we have a special type of licensing activation called provisional activation that allows the older BarTender 2016 or 10.1 or 10.0 or whatever it is to keep running while you set up your new BarTender 2022 platform, and you can do your testing and validation of both your templates and your integrations. And so that would be the first thing I would say is put it on a new server or a new VM or in a new host, and do the provisional activation that's in the guidelines. And then you've got the time to do your test and evaluation and do a gradual migration rather than some kind of flash cut. Manny, what would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. So in general, whenever we own any kind of upgrade, it's very rare for us to own an in-place upgrade, as we call it. We generally practice what's called a side-by-side upgrade. And there's a few reasons for that. So one of the reasons is what Lee mentioned in terms of you have a system that's working and you're depending on it, and you don't want to take it down, during a 7-day maintenance period and just install the new version of it, because there's dependencies possibly outside of BarTender pending your specific deployment that need to be tested and gone through, just your general print process. The other reason is operating system compatibility. So if you're running 2016 and older, this means that you've probably, well, for customers that are running 2016, you might be on Windows 10 already, but for older versions especially, you're probably running some older version of Windows that may not be compatible with the new version of BarTender. The third one, or the last one, I guess, that I would say is the whole licensing situation. So keep in mind that in order to facilitate some of the new advanced licensing management features in 2019 and above of BarTender, the backwards compatibility in terms of licensing is a little bit different. So what I mean by that is, in the past, you used to be able to, let's say you had a 2016 license server, a 10.1 or a 10.0 client could connect to it. As of 2019, there is a different licensing protocol. So that means that licensing is now forwards and backwards compatible, but as far back as 2019. So a 2022 license server can connect to a 19 and vice versa, but not anything older than that.
No, thank you. Yeah. And then it looks like there's some other questions regarding, for 2016 specifically, for these folks, they will continue to still operate post end of support, correct? Or is there something that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a concern that I hear oftentimes on a call is, oh my gosh, does that mean my bartender is going to stop working on May 1st? And the answer is no. The fact that we have all, bartender 7.2s and 7.5s out there still working should reassure you. It just means it's not supported. If it doesn't mean that it's going to stop working on you. So you're good there. Now, if you do need support, and maybe that's a requirement because of the industry you're in, that you can't have an unsupported software, and guess what? You're not going to migrate in the next 5 days to the new version. There is an extension available that you can pay for, that you can use to keep some bartender 2016 support. It does cost more money. It is for a limited time, but it can give you that bridge to get you from where you are now to bartender 2022 while still maintaining all of the certifications you might need to have. The other thing I would want to point out is that if you are currently on maintenance, then this update, the new bartender, it's free. It's part of that maintenance that you've been paying for. If you are not on maintenance, you'll want to talk to your Siegel partner or directly to us, because it may be that we need to first get you on to maintenance, or it may be that it's going to be less expensive for you to get a whole new license. But if you're on maintenance, great. You're not going to have to pay any more for the new version of BarTender. And if you're not on maintenance, we need to probably get you on to maintenance so that we can get this done for you. And I did post to everybody in the questions the link to that updating to BarTender 2022 webpage.
Yeah, but we'll be sending up a follow-up with a bunch of different links and resources as well. Another one is it best to update the server side first, then the clients, or the client first?
Yeah, so I can jump in on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so generally speaking, you want to do server side first. Keep in mind, and this I'm going to hopefully answer some of the questions I see in chat all in one go here. So a few things. So keep in mind you can only have one version of BarTender running on a given PC. Keep in mind that the compatibility in terms of operating system, it may not, BarTender 2022 may not be compatible with older operating systems that you may be running. Common one is like Windows Server 2008 R2. So you generally want to go server side first, and you want to put up a separate alongside your existing license server, 2022 license server. This will allow you to have both license servers on the network. So you'll have a 16 or older, and then a new 2022, both available on the network, each on their own respective server. The integrations and things like that should be migrated over as well as the system database and anything related to the server side functionality. From that point forward, pending your deployment, you may opt to start upgrading in place clients or to provide them new PCs and do a full-on side-by-side. But you have that choice at that point to have and activate against either client. So you have both dependencies on the network, and you would do that by leveraging Lee's mentioned provisional activation. So during that period, that's going to be where you activate against that 2022. And then slowly over time, you shift away all dependency from the 2016 environment onto the 2022 environment.
And Manny was right on with that. One little side note on that, Manny was talking about having BarTender running on some of the older computers, and maybe you want to change those out. And that's an important difference. Is BarTender 2022 does require Windows 10. So if you have existing platforms running BarTender and you're on Windows 7, or I actually had somebody that they're on Windows XP call in a few weeks ago, you are going to need to upgrade or update that platform to Windows 10 or 11. And if you're working with a server, Manny, what is it? Windows Server 2019, I think?
Yeah, it would be Server 16, 19, or 2020, 22.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So those are some things to be aware of as well.
And then on the topic of operating system, because I see it floating around, as of BarTender 2022, the supported operating systems on the client or the desktop OS versions are Windows 10 and 11. On the server side, it's Windows Server 16, 19, and 22. We have no preference in terms of which one you should install it on. Install it on whatever works best for you as a company or for your IT, I guess more specifically. Obviously, the newer operating systems, especially on the server side, not so much the desktop side, are going to be supported longer if you go with the newer version of that. But we have no preference as long as it's compatible.
So one question I've seen coming in, Manny, is how do we schedule that assessment? And the best way I think to do it is to contact the Siegel sales team. And so that's going through, if you have a partner, go through your partner and contact us either through our regional sales manager or through one of our channel salespeople. And you can find, if you don't have that contact, you can certainly go to our website and contact our sales desk there, and they'll be happy to help you with that. I do want to reassure everybody, we have had a lot of questions, and they're great ones, and we will be answering all of these questions over the next few days and send it back to you, to everybody in email form. So just because we didn't get to your question, don't despair. We are going to get to it. And Ryan, I think
we do have a few minutes left. I know there was a question. Oh.
But, now
okay.
you're okay.
Okay, cool. We do have a few other questions regarding templates, and if there is any rework that needs to be done when it comes to updating your BarTender license. Like, what happens to those? What happens to the templates that are on the older versions?
So the way it works is when you open an old template in the new BarTender designer, and then you go to save it, it will by default save it in the latest version. So that kind of takes care of your update. Now it'll ask you, and you can always you have the choice of being able to save it in an older formatted version. For the most part, the only changes that most of the time you end up needing to make, I've seen, is what Manny talked about earlier. Older versions didn't have all of the new features that we have, and so maybe there was VB scripting that was done, or something was handled in a way that took advantage of a quirk in an older version of BarTender that doesn't need to be there anymore. And so those are things that Manny and his people can help you understand and make fixes to, so that those templates are going to actually run faster and better.
Yeah, I mean, in general, probably 99% or higher of the templates are going to work in the new version when you bring them up. There may be changes that you want to make eventually down the road where you could remove some of the complicated items that are now out of date or irrelevant, because there's a nice little checkbox or radio button that does the same thing as that script or something like that. If I were to like say, what are the common of that very small percentage that's like sub 1%, and I'm kind of just, this is off the top of my head. If I were to say what are the common labels that do break, generally speaking, are the labels that either contain scripting or they contain some other sort of external dependency. So you reference a relative location, so you reference a C drive, a desktop, a documents, or something to that effect, and you move that label and that dependency goes away. And then in terms of like the operator, right, they don't know that the label has all the same functionality and it's been inherited and everything is great and wonderful. They just know that they see this message when they go to print. So I would say a missing dependency is generally the common one of that very small subset of labels that don't work.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Great. Well,
So,
I think that's pretty much time. I know there are a lot more questions than we were able to answer, but as Lee had mentioned, we will definitely be getting to all of these, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'll also be sending out a follow-up email of if there was anything else that you guys needed to know before that we weren't able to also answer today, but unfortunately it is time. Just to recap, I mean, at the end of the day, for upgrading your software, what we really want is just to make sure that you guys do not have to deal with any security or compliance risks or continue to exhaust your IT resources unnecessarily. So the three easy things that you guys can do is, one is to contact your Siegel sales rep or reseller, and they'll allow you to see what your available options are, which is number one, to renew your maintenance and support agreement. Number two, get an upgrade assessment from Manny and his team. Or number three, if you have BarTender 2016 Enterprise and Automation, you can also extend your support for a little bit longer, so you don't have to worry about that April 30th deadline for end of support. But unfortunately, it is time, and we thank you guys again for all of for sitting with us and allowing us to answer your questions.
thank you, everyone, and we look forward to talking to some of you in the future.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.